Well, good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the August 2021 Epsilon Sigma Phi Professional Development Webinar. My name is Jeanette Ray Kiewit, and I serve as chair of the Professional Development Committee. If each of you would just take a moment to drop your name and institution in the chat box so we know who we have with us today. And we do have a couple more people logging in. So please drop your name and your institution in the chat box. And today our presentation is Impacting Food Insecurity, Extension's Grow and Give Modern Victory Garden Project. And we are so glad to have our presenters today, Katie Dunker, Colorado Master Gardener Statewide Coordinator, and a team from Colorado State University Extension, and Katie will introduce her co-presenters. Again, please drop your name and institution in the chat box, and we will have time at the end for questions. So if you have a question, you're welcome to jot it in the chat box as you think about it, or we will ask and have time at the end. So without further ado, I will turn the time over to our presenters and let them get started. Katie?
Thanks, Jeanette. I appreciate it. I'm Katie Dunker, as Jeanette introduced, and I have the pleasure of working with CSU Extension in the Master Gardener program role statewide. I also have three colleagues with me today. I'm going to introduce them, but I don't want this to be deceptive because this presentation truly represents the collective work of over 15 dedicated staff and professionals in Extension, and probably double that, well over double that in terms of significant contributions that have been made by CSU Extension, staff, faculty, and professionals over the past year. So we're excited to share some of what we've had in the works in Colorado and how that can be applied and applicable to your populations and the greater Extension community across the US. So joining me today is also Amy Lentz. She's the Horticulture and Agriculture Extension Agent in Weld County, which is in northern Colorado. Amanda McQuaid, who works actually at the Ag Experiment Station. She's based on the Western Slope. So she's based in Grand Junction at the Western Center. And out there, she's the Community Food Systems Program Coordinator. Also with me is John Stozel. He's the Horticulture and Food Systems Extension Agent in Jefferson County, which is just outside of the Denver area. So let me set the stage here a little bit for Grow and Give and where we're going to go today. You all know that there's been a global pandemic of COVID-19, which has really created food supply chain disruptions over the past year and truly exacerbated inequalities, which really already existed in our food systems, making an already big problem a lot worse. Food insecurity in the US was at 10.5% of American households before the pandemic. That's according to the USDA in 2019. And hunger is now estimated to be double that incidence, with 1 in 4 US households uncertain about where their next meal will come from, according to Northwestern University last year. Furthermore, it's well documented that diverse and underrepresented and underserved, traditionally underserved communities are disproportionately impacted by food insecurity. So where does that leave us? What do we do in Extension when we're facing these kinds of, really major community level issues? This project specifically focuses on encouraging food donations to local emergency food providers and really focus on food banks, food pantries, and shelters that regularly serve the traditionally underserved. And we're looking for partners that will accept local homegrown produce, which is not every food bank. Additionally, we really encourage gardeners to donate even closer to home. And this is really kind of a twist on this project, and what truly made it a modern victory garden project was that we encourage people to donate to neighbors in need as they defined. We've heard over the past year numerous stories from gardeners donating produce to homebound seniors and those that were at high risk for COVID-19. So over the next hour, we're going to walk you through how we did it and where we go from here, some touch points for Extension to grow on. And let's jump in. This is kind of a multimedia presentation. So you're going to get a few different videos dispersed throughout our presentation. And the first one is kind of an introduction to our program. So you kind of get your feet on the ground and understand what we're about.
Victory gardens were planted during World War I and World War II in response to severe food shortages caused by the war. In 2020, over 100 years after the first Victory gardens were planted, Colorado State University Extension established Grow and Give as a modern Victory Garden project to address food insecurity resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. But food insecurity doesn't disappear at the end of a war or a pandemic. Hunger impacts every community in the United States every day. How are we helping? Grow and Give addresses food insecurity in Colorado by connecting backyard and community gardens to food donation sites across the state. Now, we need your help to make a difference. Join our community. Fight food insecurity in your community. Register with Grow and Give to get connected with neighbors in need. Grow food. Share the harvest.
So that's kind of our promo video this year that we've been sharing on websites and social media, just to kind of lay the foundation for what this project has been about. You heard in the video that we've been really focused on helping people learn to grow food and then keep that harvest local, encouraging people to simply share their excess. So if you get lost in all of this content that I'm going to share, that my colleagues are going to share, we're going to encourage you to multitask and go to growandgivecolorado.org so you can check out the resources that we've been putting together over the past 18 months. I really think that you'll benefit from checking that out as we go through this. So what was our big idea here? COVID comes down, shutdowns, we're trying to figure out and navigate, what do we do? We all did that, right? We really don't want to go back to 18 months ago. But we kind of had this big idea. A team of us came together in March of 2020 and said, let's do something with this time. This is a really unique opportunity for us in Extension to do something big and really serve locally in a niche way that only we can do as Extension professionals. And so we really looked at this opportunity where people are at home. It's the springtime. And in Colorado, March meant we still had some time to do some planning before most of our state was going to be growing food outside. So we really had, it was just prime time for thinking about growing food. And so we said, all right, we understand that there's going to probably be some significant food disruptions. There's definitely going to be some income disruptions and the need for more local foods. And nutrition security associated with food insecurity, right? Like more than just feeding families, but giving them nutritious food along the way. And so we really thought about, well, how can we do what we've always done, which is help people grow food? But let's improve our access for Coloradans to learn how to grow food and centralize some of those resources. Then on the flip side of that, once there is a harvest, let's be a catalyst to encourage and facilitate food donations. And then kind of looking at selfishly as the Master Gardener statewide coordinator, I'm like, what are we going to do with volunteers this year? We can't come together in ways that we've normally come together. How are we going to continue to serve our communities at the local level? And Grow and Give gave us an opportunity to both engage volunteers and give back in a very local and real way. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that engagement looked like with our volunteers. And then also set up new partnerships. Hey, this is a great opportunity to kind of reach across the table, reach across town in our communities and get to know some partners and other organizations that we maybe haven't worked with in the past. So this was really our foundational big idea. We're going to take you back now. This is another short video. This actually was a video that was associated with our first press release that went out on May 1st statewide as kind of a, hey, Colorado State University Extension is launching this Grow and Give project. So take a look at this. This was May 1st, 2020.
If you've cleaned out your garage and cleaned out your closets, it might be time to go out and get in the dirt. Gardening is fairly easy to accomplish, and the returns that you get for digging in the dirt and planting a few seeds are great abundance. Of course, everything starts with the soil. So knowing what's in your soil, and then try a few things and recognize that even master gardeners don't always end up with successful plants every time, but you have to start somewhere and you learn along the way what works and what doesn't. So if you're intimidated by any particular type of plant, plant a zucchini, and you'll have as much zucchini as you and your neighborhood will want to eat. Tomatoes grow good here. We grow cucumbers, green beans. Lots of the things that you would buy in the store are you can actually grow in your own yard. Even with a small yard, you can grow quite a bit of food. And I call it like a sandbox for adults. There, it's like it gives you a reason to be outside, a reason to get dirty, a reason to nurture something and see it grow. There's a lot of ways where it's very satisfying.
All right. So with that launch in May, early May last year, what happened over the course of our first season? And really, this is looking at the growing season because that was our primary audience, right? Is looking at May through harvest months. We were seeing harvest through November. So we had about 37 counties that registered and participated. So that includes almost 600 registered gardens or participants. Some registered a community garden, some registered their home garden. It just depended on how people wanted to participate in the program. All these little stars across this map demonstrate where we had gardeners who were dedicated to growing and giving. About half of our participants were master gardeners, a little less than half. I think we had about 220 that were master gardeners. So we certainly were able to engage our volunteer audience, which was part of our model during COVID, was to allow people to be home and do something good for their communities in this way. But we were able to engage the public in this. And I think that's where this program is set apart from many other states who have similar programs. It's not just a Master Gardener program. This outgrew the Master Gardener program actually pretty quickly and really became something that was a community program. It was great too, because one of our tenets for this program, a pillar, was that we wanted to help people learn how to grow food. There was a lot of interest in that in the past year. And so it was great to see that in our registration numbers, we actually had a significant number of people who have not donated food in the past locally. And so that was awesome to be able to connect with that audience and connect with a significant number of people who had never gardened before, had never had a food garden. This year, I will say that our numbers have increased. So we have almost 700 gardeners growing and giving with us this year. So it has started to increase a little bit. So how did we do this? How did we get this out there? Well, we had a press release in May, and then we had to get creative because, we did get some radio publicity, we got TV publicity. We ended up with about 10 to 12 earned media pieces over the past year related to this Grow and Give project. And it was statewide media, so a lot of it was very visible and well seen. So I know that we got a lot of people that way. But I will say that one of our best ways to connect on this project was actually using a tool that we already had in our toolbox. And we had an online vegetable course. In fact, we have a whole online gardening series that is hosted through our neighbors, our partners, Colorado State University online. And so I approached them in early April and said, hey, could we flip this online class and make it free for 1 month? And we were able to do that. It was a little bit messy, but essentially what happened is that in 2019, our total registrations for this online course that were paid were about 78 registrations. And when we offered the free promotion in May alone, we had over 5,000 people who signed up to take this class with us for free. That gave us a pool of people to then market the Grow and Give project to, people who were interested, who had said, yeah, I'm interested in food gardening in Colorado. And then this year we did a shorter promotion. So we did just 2 weeks in June. And we had, again, just a great number of people who joined us this year. This was just a creative way to get the program out there and get our curriculum that we're not trying to hold under, keep in the dark or hold in a closet somewhere. We want this curriculum in people's hands. And so that was really part of our project with Grow and Give, is how do we get this information out there to the people who need it, to the people who are new to gardening or are struggling with gardening in Colorado. And that is not a small number of people who struggle with gardening in Colorado. We were also really social. So we took our pieces and we went to Instagram and Facebook like never before, right? We're trying to meet people where they were at, which was at home and likely online, whether they're doing remote learning or remote working, whatever it was. Online was definitely our best avenue to connect with our audience across Colorado. And we tried to hit them with timely resources. So in April, you're planning a garden, you're thinking about that. Well, we have resources, videos, and other pieces where you can learn how to pick a site for planting a garden. And then we would say, you need to be planting these seeds now, depending on your elevation and your location in our state, which varies greatly for those of you who are not familiar with Colorado. And then obviously, like in early June, this is when we plant tomatoes in Colorado. We were putting out a lot of resources around planting tomatoes and how that's done, and videos, et cetera. So social media has been huge for us. It's a great way to connect. It also allowed our partners across the state to retag, retweet, reshare, et cetera, all of these things. So we got more play that way. The bottom line is that we were relevant, and food gardening is still relevant. And so that's where I think this project has an opportunity to scale. And we're encouraging other extension services to take our playbook and implement it where you are. Food gardening is hip. That's the bottom line. It got real big last year, and people are still interested in growing their own food, a little DIY, something with their hands, something away from the computer. However, where are they getting their information when they get stuck? It's online. And so that's everything. I know that extension historically has been bread and butter, in-person, hands-on workshops, and we appreciate that too in Colorado. But the reality is most people are Googling, and most people need to find resources online because they're doing that, with their phones. YouTube and social is really where we've spent a significant amount of our time over the fact sheet development piece. And fact sheets have their place, but what we found is that people are really looking for more digestible resources at this time. And we needed a way to be relevant with our volunteers, right? During COVID, but beyond COVID. Volunteers needed some flexibility. Guess what? They always need flexibility. It's not just a COVID thing. They need flexibility to do more things online, to do more things on their own time, on their own schedule. And this project really allowed us to do that. It also allowed them to be creative with a really meaningful project. So I'm just gonna give a short story. We had a master gardener who contacted us at the end of last season, and she said, "No, I signed up for Grow and Give because you were going to give us some service hours for growing and giving at home." And she's like, I knew our local food pantry, and I've always donated canned goods, but she's like, this was such a different experience this year. I did it for the service hours, but she's like, I will continue to do it because giving my local produce that was in excess anyways was so meaningful. And I don't need volunteer credit in the future. I'm going to do this anyways. And so we really felt like we hit this heartstring with our volunteers of people who were like, wow, didn't realize this was such a big need. And here's a project that we can do as master gardeners that truly has an impact at the local level. So now we're going to jump into exactly what that looked like and how we connected through our Grow team and our Give team to provide resources to both our master gardeners as well as the general public who are growing and giving with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy.
Great, thanks, Katie. So I want to walk you guys through a little bit of the Grow side of what we did for Grow and Give. And as the name implies, Grow and Give, not only did we want to connect that fresh food with donation centers and those in need, but we also wanted to serve that mission that we have in Extension of teaching people how to grow. And so, to fulfill that mission, we wanted to do that by offering that research-based education to the public, and Grow and Give really was just a great way to allow us to continue doing that, even when we had that time of stay-at-home orders. So as an extension agent, it just really filled that gap in a lot of us, in a lot of our work days. So early on in the process, We had some CSU horticulture agents and master gardener coordinators pull together and meet regularly to develop a huge amount of web-based resources. As Katie mentioned, those were meant to be easily digestible, very pointed and pinpointed towards home fruit and vegetable production. And so in that process, we created a lot of videos. Those videos were short videos, usually less than 15 minutes. And again, kind of focusing on that beginner gardener. So because we were doing this in Colorado, it was also important for us to send out that information that was highly specific to our state. As Katie mentioned, we've got different growing conditions across the state, variations in elevation, depending on where you are. And so we knew that gardening in Colorado was quite tricky. And everywhere has their own challenges. So even for those of you that aren't from a state where they have different elevations and different types of growing conditions, it's still specific to your area. So it was just a really great way for us to give them that information that instead of Googling and finding something from Florida or, Indiana or somewhere like that, they could find something that was specific to Colorado. Early on in the process in 2020, we started out by launching just a few web pages that were attached to our Colorado Master Gardener website. It was an already existing website, and so it was just easy for us to kind of tack on to that and get those pages going. So we had like a main page, we had a grow page, and we had a give page, and that was pretty much it. But over time, after creating so many resources, we realized that it was starting to get a little daunting and a little overwhelming because we had just tons and tons of videos and fact sheets and other articles. So this year, to launch 2021, we decided to create a new web page altogether, a website. That is now what you're looking at, hopefully, as we're going through this, of growandgivecolorado.org. And so under this new standalone site, we were able to increase the amount of content that we were putting out there. And we were actually able to organize that in a way that was much more easy for the beginning gardener or even an advanced gardener to find what they were looking for quickly and easily. So we launched that site in 2021, and that has a homepage, it has an about section, it has a join us page. And as you're looking at it, you'll see those two main sections are still there, that grow section for growing food, and then that giving locally section that John's going to talk about in a minute. We also have a section for our partner resources, 4-H, other food organizations can tack on here. And then we're still building out some of our Spanish resources as well. So all in all, this, creating this grow section allowed us, a lot of horticulture agents and master gardener coordinators and volunteers to get in on creating this content. You'll notice that there were some garden plans on there, and those were created actually by master gardeners. And so they submitted those, and then we posted those up on the website. So a great way to get your agents involved. There's some redundancy throughout the page, but we think that's okay. We've got a section that's crops A through Z. So if you're growing a zucchini, you can go right to zucchini and find what you need. But it might also show up somewhere else. But again, with the amount of content that we were creating, we really wanted to make it easy. So some redundancy we felt was okay. So this has just been a great way for us to all be involved. We also created those social media graphics for easy posting. Great teamwork across all of our experts at CSU Extension. So I encourage you, as Katie mentioned, to go to the growandgivecolorado.org website and check out all those great resources that we've been working so hard to create. And so I think with that, I think I'll turn it over to, is it Amanda next?
It is.
Oh, I should mention, actually, thanks, Katie. I forgot about the Colorado Vegetable Guide. One more thing before we turn it over to Amanda. We did create a Colorado Vegetable Guide over the past couple of years. This was something that was in the process, but Grow and Give kind of gave us that push we needed to create it a little bit faster and get this out as well. So we did have this 85-page resource that has information for all the different regions across the state. And this is available in English and Spanish, and they can download this from the Grow and Give website as well. All right, so take it over, Amanda.
Thanks, Amy. So my name is Amanda McQuaid. I work at the Agriculture Experiment Station in Grand Junction, which is about 400 miles away from Fort Collins. And when we were contemplating the Grow and Give, we knew we had really great resources from the grow side, and we had it in a lot of our counties across the state. But we were relatively uncoordinated on the give side. So in terms of those of us working in food insecurity, it wasn't quite as developed and coordinated. So I run what is essentially a public education and engagement program and in a farm to food bank and farm to school program. And so I joined this, I joined the Give team to lend some advice about that giving. We realized very early on that our give structure had to be just as strong as our grow, that it had to be, we had to intentionally encourage those growers to get over any kind of barrier they might feel. It's one thing when we're really enthusiastic in the spring and we sign up, but then when we have a harvest, we knew that there were going to be barriers in getting the food in the car during a pandemic and getting it to a busy food pantry. When the Give team started, which is what John Stolzel will be talking about in a minute, our primary focus was how are we going to reduce those barriers? And then how are we going to do the ultimate goal of making a soft handoff between our Grow and Give participants and their local community. So our ultimate goal is that they will actually build a relationship and CSU steps back out of it. So in a way, we're sort of like declining participants while we recruit new ones to Grow and Give. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John.
Thanks, Amanda. And I want to say that Amanda McQuaid really had the playbook for developing this part of the project. And my conversations with her early on really helped me recognize the importance of connecting with CSU colleagues, both externally from Extension. You know, Amanda's working with Ag Experiment Station, so very closely with Extension, but you know, as well as connecting internally with Extension, and I'll get to that in a moment. And this making new connections is a recurring theme that I think underscores the success of the program. So like Amanda was saying, our goal is to help facilitate, or has been to help facilitate, that initial contact between a gardener with excess produce and a local food pantry or hunger relief organization. But we wanted to do that statewide. And so it's like, all right, how do we make this program local in every county? And that's where we relied very heavily on kind of the strength of Extension, in that we do have a presence in multiple counties across the state. And so we asked our colleagues to reach out to local food pantries and, hey, just give us the dates and times of the hours, I guess, for when produce can be donated, not various locations in your county. And while you're doing this, would you please add that information to a shared Google spreadsheet that we were using to coordinate all of this data? And our colleagues responded. I mean, Katie mentioned that we have a core team of maybe 15 members working on Grow and Give, but beyond that, we have staff all across the state who are reaching out. And I want to add that this accomplished two things. This initial outreach to food pantries accomplished two things. One, we had a database that we could tell our residents about and say, hey, this is where you can donate, and these are the hours that this place will accept your produce. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to find out where they can donate. But two, speaking from personal experience, I hadn't worked very closely with food pantries in my county, and I know some other offices hadn't either. But this process started to build a relationship between Extension offices and food pantries, or in my case, I have met, I don't know, maybe 12 plus directors of food pantries in my county, and that has led to further programming, and it's been an amazing relationship. So at this point in the story, we have a spreadsheet, and as much as I love spreadsheets, I know they're not for everyone. And our team knew we needed to make this process of finding a location as easy and as straightforward as possible, right? We need to make this as few clicks as possible and just present the information to people. That's what they want. So we met with our IT team, we connected with them, and brought them into this process. We described what was going on, and they suggested that we use a Google Map implementation. And Katie will show you that on the next slide. So on our map, this it pulls data from our spreadsheet that I was talking about, and users can scroll in, zoom out, zoom in, click and drag the map around, and they can click on an icon or balloon to learn more about a location. And this is just taking one step further to make this information as presentable and direct and easy to access as possible. Initially, I said we were working with a Google Sheet implementation. We have since upgraded to using a Qualtrics form to report that information. That makes it a little more straightforward for our colleagues too. They don't have to wade through a messy or heavy spreadsheet in this case. Just input the data into a form, and that's part of the theme here too. We want to make this as easy as possible for not only donors and gardeners, but also our colleagues. Would you go to the next slide, Katie? And so building from that map implementation, we have also connected with Fresh Food Connect. Yeah, there we go. We're partnering with Fresh Food Connect. They are a nonprofit organization that's working in a very similar space to Grow and Give. They're located in multiple states, but I believe they began in Colorado. And essentially, they're facilitating the kind of donation of produce to food pantries, although they come at this process from a different perspective. They're focused a little more on connecting with pantries, and in Extension's case, we're focused a little more on providing education and broad outreach. But we figured, why not connect with Fresh Food Connect? And oh, by the way, they have some really nifty phone technology that we can use to help spread Grow and Give and help make finding locations to donate even easier. So you don't even have to log on to a web page, it's just on your phone. The app also allows people to report their donation. We currently ask volunteers to voluntarily report their donation on a web page, which we have another Qualtrics form that's really straightforward, it's streamlined, but we're piloting this collaboration to see if the phone technology really takes off. But I also want to add one more short story on this Give section before we move on, and that's about our recipes. Early on in this process, we brought in family consumer sciences and nutrition and health specialists to our Give team. And they came at this project with another perspective. And they suggested, Ann Duncan and Abby Weber specifically suggested that we could create some commodity conscious and time efficient recipes that could be made with produce donations in mind, that we could deliver to food pantries. And this provided another set of resources that we could ask our colleagues to provide to pantries to help support our communities in another way. Another just real quick note, we also, as a full team, not just the Give team, we're working with the Grow team, and these are kind of, I would say, vague buckets that we work in. The full team provided lawn signs and distributed lawn signs to our communities. And the idea was, let's build some word of mouth. Let's get some grassroots going in this, as well as work from a more formal media or social media strategy. So with that, would you go to the next slide, Katie? We also connected with an extension media specialist and some agents and staff in La Plata County, which is centered around Durango in the southwest corner of Colorado. And this video that was put together really brings the Grow and the Give together. It gives you a perspective of what this looks like in a more rural county.
La Plata County has over 30 registered gardens with the Grow and Give project. It's an impressive number for a rural county with a short growing season. Some are community gardens, school gardens, and first-time gardeners. The majority have a CSU Colorado Master Gardener connected, providing support and organization for the project.
My name is Darren Parmenter. I am the Horticulture Extension Agent and County Director here in Plata County. CSU Extension's new gardening initiative called Grow and Give is a modern victory garden project designed to encourage Coloradoans to grow food, plant extra, and share the harvest locally. CSU Extension has been dedicated to helping Coloradoans grow their own food for 150 years. Resources for growing and giving are located on one site at growandgivecolorado.org.
This is my Grow and Give Colorado project, also personal family garden. This is an opportunity for regular folks in Colorado to be able to share some of the bounty of whatever they can harvest with neighbors or with their local community to help offset some of that food insecurity in the state and in the country at this point.
And once I realized I wasn't going to be traveling at all this year, I decided to enhance my normal gardening and do a lot more. And I give a lot away every year anyway because I grow far more than I can ever use.
As a result of Grow and Give, CSU staff in La Plata County were able to establish new partnerships with 3 organizations. 2 of these organizations happen to be in neighboring counties, one in Montezuma and one in San Juan. But given the proximity in miles to these organizations from our home base of Durango, I think it remains a valuable connection. The food bank in Silverton, which is San Juan County, is a relatively new operation. They are very grateful to have their organization on the give list, and were willing to drive to Durango to pick up produce if any became available. The third new partnership established in La Plata County as a result of the Grow and Give project was with Compañeros. This organization serves the immigrant community, many of which are from Latin countries. In a conversation with the director, she shared how many of these families really enjoyed gardening and were excited to get started in their new home, but they were lacking some of the educational resources to help them navigate the new climate. She also mentioned that of the families who Compañeros served, about 80% of them were Spanish-speaking only. Furthermore, in May, over 70 Victory Garden kits went out to families in need, and approximately 40 of those were provided to families that were Spanish-speaking only.
Okay, that's such a great video. I always love watching that. So at the end of the season, we wanted to kind of bring this home for you guys. At the end of the season last year, we did a survey where we sent this out to all of our participants. We ended up getting 148 responses back, which is really great from a survey online. And what we asked them was, was this the first season that you had donated? About half of them said yes. We asked them if they would donate again in the future, if they would participate in the program again in the future. About 85% said yes. But also we wanted to get kind of some of their take homes from this whole thing. And so we asked them, what did you like most about the Grow and Give project? And we just left this open, as an open-ended question to see what they would say. And we got so many great responses about how they were motivated. They felt like they were, encouraged to be active and do something when we had stay-at-home orders. They felt like it was just great to give back to their community from their own gardens and feel connected with their communities. But I love this quote right here in the center. And I just like to highlight this before we go back to Katie, that one person said, "It felt great to donate food to others, especially during the pandemic. It was a positive moment during difficult times and wonderful to create something beautiful and tangible to share with others." And I thought that was just a great way to sum up the whole project of that year, which this survey was done in 2020. We'll do something similar in 2021 to see, how attitudes and minds have shifted a little bit. But I just thought that was a really great take-home message straight from one of our participants. So I think we'll turn it back over to Katie.
Actually, Amanda and John are going to kind of talk about our shifting program to 2021.
Yeah, so this is a good transition. So one of those quotes was feeling connected with my community. And that's really where we see a lot of growth happening with this program. So the first part of this, we are still focused on reaching out to new gardeners. This is a great way to tap into that latent energy of people who want to grow food and want to give it away. So we really want to get those new gardeners into the fold, give them really great resources, and then connect them to food pantries. But with their returning ones, we do really want them, we anticipate them going out into the community and building their own their own network. So not only is this community connectedness, kind of our goal, it actually has a lot of like good mental health outcomes. It's good for the participants. It's good for the food pantries to get new type of like donors and supporters in the community. It's also such a good thing during times where we're so divisive. So we're really focusing on this community health aspect as we move away from this idea that food insecurity is just an emergency response. It's a temporary situation. We are wanting to communicate to folks that even though we're maybe out of an emergency response, food insecurity is a persistent problem in our communities and still deserves our attention. And then John is going to talk a little bit about the goals we have for our staff and volunteers.
Yeah, and so transitioning from community connectedness, I would apply that internally as well within Extension. When I personally first started in Extension as a horticulture and kind of systems agent, that's the area I worked in. But through this program, we have been able to deconstruct some of the walls that exist, that I've perceived existed between different program areas. Like we're including family consumer sciences, like I had mentioned, and we've begun to reach out to 4-H. And it's just the more chairs we can bring to the table, the more perspectives we can include, the stronger this program's going to be. And there's kind of a shift that I am personally perceiving with this project, and that it's becoming kind of a nexus to coordinate local programming. It's a way in which program areas can tap in to something that we're all working on. And I can learn about what family consumer sciences might be doing or what their focus areas might be. At the same time, I can talk with my fellow horticulture agents in other counties about what they have been doing with this program. The program looks a little different in La Plata than it does in Jefferson County or even in Douglas County, which is Denver Metro as well. So we're sharing information in a kind of different way than I have seen in the past. And that has been really positive. And from this, it's not only me that's developing a new perspective of Extension, but we are reaching new communities, or communities that we haven't traditionally, that at least in my horticulture POV point of view, we haven't traditionally spent a lot of time focusing on. And this, I think, begins to shift the public perspective or perception of Extension, and that we're here with our community and those who are in need. And so with that, I would pass the floor back to Katie to kind of wrap this up.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thanks, Amanda, and thanks, Amy. So some of our key take-home points, just for our internal program, but hopefully it's something that's relatable to everyone who's joining us today and watching the recording, is that we really feel like now is the time for Extension professionals to demonstrate our ability to be nimbly responsive to current issues and meet local needs through this kind of statewide collaboration. So this idea of a statewide structure. And my colleagues know that anytime I talk about Extension, I always work in my favorite quote, which is, wherever you are in Colorado, our state, we're local. That's really what makes Extension so unique. We are a statewide player and partner serving locally. And why not, build on that strength and be nimble and responsive to what is currently happening in our communities. I think Grow and Give is a great example of that. But it's just one example. We kind of took our strength in, this initial project was developed out of our horticulture team, but we quickly expanded to other professionals, other teams, other program areas. But we really kind of did the same things we've been doing, just in a brand new way. So we had the online class. We made it free for a month. We did a big, spectacular promotion of it. We've been engaging master gardeners and growing food for a long time. We encouraged the public to join us this year and last year. So we just found new ways to strengthen what we already do well. We also took some risks, and we were willing to try some different things. Let's try this Google map. Let's try recipes. Let's try labels. Let's try lawn signs. Let's just throw different things together and see what works. And through this, we were able to really get connected with new audiences. And I think because we were willing to try some new things and take some risks, it allowed us to kind of play in a different ball game than we normally do as Extension. We got connected with a lot of new partners, and certainly public who maybe had not connected with Extension in the past. The bottom line is, though, we're not done. I think 2020 was this awesome, momentous year in terms of this project, being able to come together and build some momentum around this during a time when we were otherwise at home and dealing with some, so many other things. 2021 has been really different, right? People are traveling again, things are open again, county fairs are back open. There's been a lot more on our plate, a lot more distractions. And so we're trying to refocus, retool, and really rethink how Grow and Give can be strengthened in Colorado, and then potentially have the ability to scale and be something that's more nationally replicated. And partly this is going to be possible through our work with Fresh Food Connect, which, as John said, it's a Colorado-based nonprofit. You can look them up, freshfoodconnect.org. And they have an app that they're starting to take into other states. And so your state may be one of them. I can guarantee if they're not, they're looking for you, and they'd love to bring their app-based technology into your community. And so it's an opportunity to kind of say, hey, let's see who they are already partnered with and see what partnerships already you could leverage through Extension in your state. So this is kind of where we are and some of our big take-home points. Our final recommendations for all of you is really to just consider that, we may be out of an emergency situation in terms of COVID-19. Now, don't quote me on that, because things seem to be changing daily and I can't keep up with all the news. But what we know is that nutrition security is not a timely issue. It's a chronic issue. This is not going away. It's episodic for many families and individuals who experience nutrition and food insecurity. So it doesn't mean the same people are always coming back. In reality, it's a chronic issue in our communities, but it's different people and it's different families, and it depends on the year and when what's happening, right? So as Extension professionals, we're encouraging everyone to just be flexible, do what you do well, with new audiences, and maybe Grow and Give is something that you could take to your state as a way to kind of expand on what's already working well about educating, in your local growing conditions. And then actually growing food and coordinating and encouraging donations from home growers. So sometimes I think this gardening community can kind of be, kind of pushed aside as, oh, those are retired people who really care about their lawns and gardening is a much bigger audience, especially now. And so let's be open to what gardeners look like in your communities and in your state and connect with them in new ways through meaningful projects. Deliver the goods. I think sometimes we trip ourselves up in Extension and we come up with these very, very scientific or these dense documents that we encourage people to download as a PDF. And people are looking for the top 10 ways to grow tomatoes. Right? So they want the easy, quick, 2-minute, engaging video. And so let's try to create those. I think what you create in your state, we'd love to replicate in our state. So look at our stuff and see what's applicable to your state, and let's share and really get our good information, science-based resources out to people. And marketing matters. You need to know where your audience is, who your audience is, and tell them who we are over and over and over and what we do. You can't assume that everyone knows who we are. They don't. In fact, I've kind of gone away from marketing extension over and over, and instead just talking about Colorado State University. This is a brand that people know and trust. And so let's really focus on just that brand. And we're stronger with our RAM, is how I usually say it. We're the Colorado State University Rams. And if people find out that we're part of extension and what extension is, that's awesome. We love for them to know that. But the bottom line is that we're all CSU, we're all Rams, and we're stronger with that brand. All right, so that wraps up our Grow and Give, our formal presentation. You know, when we are done with these kinds of talks or presentations in our local communities, we always encourage, hey, learn more, grow more, and always contact your local extension office. We are CSU in your community. And so, so this is something kind of a touch point of where we transition from a statewide initiative to getting people connected with their local offices as well. And we would love to stay connected with any of you. So if this resonated with you, if you're interested in bringing Grow and Give or something similar to Grow and Give, or you just want to talk more about that, we have an evaluation that Jeanette maybe already has put in the chat. And in there is an opportunity for you to connect with us and just say, hey, I'd like to learn more. I'd like to stay connected with you and see how we can maybe partner in the future. So get connected with us, whether that's on social, email, or just through the evaluation today. And with that, we'll see if there's any questions.
Well, at this time, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask questions or type them in the chat. And I want to just, while you're thinking about your questions, I want to thank Katie, Amanda, John, and Amy. What an incredible and most interesting Grow and Give project. It really was exciting to learn about it. So, questions. We're opening the floor for questions. No questions? Well, your session was very informative, very, very.
I guess we gave so much information that it just is all covered, Jeanette, and there's no follow-up questions, or your questions might be really specific. And if they are, then please reach out through our email.
And Amy had asked about the survey. So the questions for the survey are in the chat box.
And this is Amy again. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. So I am working with a slightly different project. I am working on the CDC HOP grant for land-grant universities through University of Tennessee Extension. And my question was similar to what Brent just popped up there. My question was what challenges did anyone come across in working with the food pantries in terms of them saying, well, we don't have refrigeration, we aren't used often, so we don't know whether we should accept things. We don't want food to go bad. Did you all have any experience with that? And how did you overcome it if that was the case?
I'm going to see if Amanda or Amy or John want to answer that one.
Yeah, so a lot of food pantries, it's a struggle. Fresh produce is in general. They do get it from other sources. So either you are a food pantry that has that refrigeration capacity, or you're not, that's already sort of demarked even before the Grow and Give program. So typically the challenges with accepting backyard produce is really about the kinds of produce that are going to be easy to subpack. So remember, in the pandemic, food pantries were super strapped for volunteers. A lot of them asked their older volunteers not to come in. And those are the people who they usually would actually take a bulk bin and subpack it into little bags. So that was a challenge. If somebody was bringing in, 40 pounds of zucchini, then it was hard to distribute. The other challenge is getting a produce that food pantries could distribute and they knew that their patrons would like. So we had a list of encouraged produce that really goes well with food pantries that are easy to distribute. So melons, cucumbers, to some extent tomatoes, not the cherries, but tomatoes and onions and things like that. then we had a list of produce that you really needed to check with your local pantry on first. And that would be greens and herbs, things that would not keep well. So that was part of that survey that we asked, was there any produce that you would prefer or not prefer? And we had that in the database. So for the most part, the pantries already knew what they could take and what they couldn't. And that was really important for us to communicate it to the patrons, because there's nothing worse than somebody growing something lovely like arugula and having a food pantry have to turn that away. That we really, really tried to avoid that situation.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to make a comment, because I used to be part of a CSA and we get stuff that we never had before, and they provided recipes or what more information about those vegetables to assist us in using them. So I think that's good that you had recipes that enable these people getting this produce to have some idea, if they've never cooked with it before or eaten it before, of ways to use it daily.
We have a question in the chat box from Brent. What challenges have you identified working with local entities?
I think Amanda covered a lot of that. I would just add that a lot of these food pantries and food banks are volunteer led and staffed. And so sometimes it's difficult to really nail down, are you accepting produce? What days are you accepting produce? When are you open? What does that handoff look like? And as Amanda alluded to at the end of her comments, we were really hyper aware that encouraging gardeners who maybe had never given locally before to a food pantry, there will come a time when they're discouraged because they're turned away from something. And so we wanted to kind of prepare our gardeners for that. And give multiple options for where they could donate and where they could give. And so in working with local entities, we really tried to connect with local CSU extension staff and say, hey, can you make this connection? Can you try to build this partnership at the local level so that there is a soft handoff from the gardeners who are in the project in your local county to make sure that we have the hours correct, that we have the location correct, that they're still accepting produce, because some places would change week to week whether or not they were accepting. In some counties, we even had master gardeners step up and create drop-off sites. And so they would have, different coolers and things, and they would have a time and a date and a location. And then the master gardeners would actually go and make that delivery themselves to the food bank or food pantry. So we're kind of learning as we go, but there's a lot of things to consider, and it's really different in every county. And again, I think that's where you fall back on your extension network and the professionals in those local communities.
We do have go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it looks like there's another question about how we're able to motivate gardeners to participate. I was thinking about it when I first read it, I was like, last year was easy because we had this captive audience of people who were at home. And like I said in the beginning, it was spring season, and around here, March and April, if you're at all connected with green industry, it's like crazy days. So people are just like, can't wait to start planting. And the reality is, in Colorado, you should not be planting much outside until May. So that was really our opportunity to kind of harness the energy that was already there. And Amanda earlier kind of said there's this latent energy around gardening community. I think there's a lot of motivation and interest, and it was just kind of tapping in and giving people a place to grow and give as a collective group. So kind of giving them a name for it and a site for it, and some camaraderie and community. This year, I would say it's been a little bit more difficult in terms of, people are traveling, people are back to some normal activities and normal life. So we haven't gotten the press that we got last year. However, we have more gardeners connecting with us than we've had in the past. And so I think, that's on us. We need to find some new ways to continue to connect through partnerships at the local level with gardeners across our state.
I think I'll just add on a couple of things to what Katie was saying. Early on, one of those big things that we reached for was that that already made online vegetable gardening class that we could offer for free. So there was a big incentive there. That class brought in a lot of people, I'm sure. We also had a lot of side projects that kind of came off of the Grow and Give project. We had some seed donation drives that were set up where, you know, right at the beginning of the pandemic, we were delivering seed packets to people's homes so they could get started, or a garden kit like they showed in Durango County. So, and then thirdly, I think just tapping into those volunteers and those programs that you already have in Extension, being your master gardeners, being your 4-H groups, that's a way for you to go ahead and get those feelers out into the community and then build your program from the ground up.
Amy, there's also a question that came in about incorporating culturally relevant gardens and different produce. Did you want to chat about that? Because I know that's been a hot topic with the Grow team this year.
Yeah, so we have been thinking a lot about that, especially since now we've got so many of our resources are already done as far as the beginning, you know, how to get started kind of stuff. And we wanted to really then kind of shift into just what you're asking about, these, you know, being relevant to these different communities and their cultures. And so we're actually trying to come up with some new videos on how to grow certain foods that certain cultures like to grow. And, you know, just really trying to expand on what we're already doing. So it's something that we're looking at for sure. Also trying to increase our Spanish resources. That's been one of our main initiatives this year as well. One of the things that I should mention is that we did do, I think a couple of those garden plans were actually geared towards certain types of gardens and different culturally relevant gardens too.
Well, we have come to the ending time of our webinar for today. I'm sure that our team, Katie, Amanda, John, and Amy, might stay on for a few more minutes if you have questions and want to stay on. But we want to thank our team for their presentation today. We want to thank each of you for your participation, and remind you that we have another ESP webinar that will take place on September 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and the topic is conflict and you, how to deal with it. Thank you again for joining us today. Thank you to our presenters. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you.